Why is this sad, guys?
To the strawberry palooza.
I was literally setting up the video so you could.
I saw typing with bubbles.
Yes, because Serena's like, oh, should I go now?
You really sound like video right now.
Cool. It's not like anyone ever watches that.
I get it.
And we said, no.
Okay, I got
I was
it.
like, I don't want to get up.
Alright.
Okay. Look at me. I'm so responsible.
Yes, I didn't rip the entire page in half.
Oh.
So many times.
Alright. You know what? I mean, could I borrow a sheet of paper from someone?
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay. Time starts now. Wait, are you guys ready? Okay. Time starts now. As the first speaker in front of team, I strongly affirm today's resolution. The U.S. should significantly increase border security in the wake of the Brussels terrorist attacks. So just some definitions, U.S., USA. Increased border security, we're going to get into that when we explain our context. And so background about the Brussels terrorist attacks would have happened approximately an our time at midnight. And what happened, it was at an airport in Brussels. And 30 people were killed, 230 were wounded when explosions in the airport were set off. And the suspect is an ISIS. When they raided the suspect's home, they found out he had an ISIS flag and he's a known ISIS sympathizer. And ISIS has already claimed responsibility for the attacks. Okay, so for our plan, actor, USFG, funding, normal ways and means, time frame, as soon as possible. So our plan is to have a funding of $500 million for the TSA, as well as the funding will also be used to work on the TSB, which is the FBI terrorist list, which is also used by organizations like the TSA to determine who is able to get on the flights, basically the no-fly list. So we're going to be... And also the TSB is used, the names on the TSB are used for background checks on the TSA. The money is specifically going to be focused on background checks and improving worker training. Okay. So getting on to the criterion, net benefits. Our first contention is that of incompetent workers. So in the SQO, the TSA has actually had a lack of funding because of the fact that it actually takes a lot of money to train workers to be properly skilled in their job and being able to determine what is suspicious and what could be harmful to travelers. So a lot of times, TSA is at cities and states actually decide not to use TSA and have airlines and airports do their own background checks. But again, these are very expensive. So what we see here is that airlines and airlines could actually, the legitimacy and the legitimacy of the background check done by the airlines is actually hard to check. So what we see here is that in the scope that the workers that are approved by airlines, these workers may not be skilled, and there could be a significant lack of security because these workers aren't skilled to spot any serious threat, unlike TSA workers, which money is significantly spent on to report suspicious threats. So the link here is when we increase funding for background checks, the TSA can expand its worker training program, which will automatically lead to better and more safer background checks and a safer environment at the airport. And what this links to is more safety in the airport impacts out to a better quality of life for people and less deaths, because what we see here is that just like the airport attacks that happen in Brussels, the same thing can happen in the USA. And when we have more safety and more security in our airports, there's a less likely chance of having a terrorist attack. Okay, so going on to our second contention, which is that of bombs, plane security. So, other than that of having threats at the airport, there is also the risk of having suspicious and terrorists on planes. So recently, there was actually a crash of an airliner, of an Egyptian airliner. Actually, a couple months ago, I think. Yeah. And what happened here was that it was a suspected bomb on the plane which caused the crash, and ISIS has again claimed responsibility for this. And the authorities have also reported that the bomb was planted by an insider at the airport. So what we see here is that there are gaps in the security which are being taken advantage of by ISIS and ISIS sympathizers. So when we increase our funding of the TSA officers, specifically for background checks and worker and for training, what we see here is that there's a less likely chance of sympathizers infiltrating airline personnel, which would overall be beneficial because if an ISIS sympathizer were to be, yes.
So do you have any numbers on how many ISIS sympathizers we have in the TSA, or is it speculation that there may or may not be any ISIS sympathizers in the TSA?
So we don't have any specific numbers, but the idea here is that because it happened in Egypt and they did have the authorities have reported that it was probably an ISIS sympathizer who placed the bomb on the plane, it is very likely it can happen right here in the USA. Okay, so what we see here is that when we also work to improve the list, the TSB, which has the terrorists, which is provided to the TSA by the FBI, what we see here is that we are going to have more information in terms of who is suspicious and who is not, and it's going to be overall safer for the people who are traveling as well as workers in the airport when we improve funding for the TSA, because we get personnel who are less likely to be that of sympathizers to ISIS. So the impact of that is a better quality of life because there's more safety. So for all these reasons, I strongly affirm today's resolution. The U.S. should significantly increase border security in the wake of the Brussels terrorist attacks. Wow, okay.
Alright, can I borrow somebody's phone?
Oh.
I left my one. I'll grab that.
Okay.
I just talked
Is everybody ready for this wild ride of a speech?
Oh dear.
What's your order?
I am now.
Are you worried?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we should.
So, are you going to order?
I'm figuring that out right now.
Okay.
Give me a second there. Probably starting with after moving on to the next page. Cool. And I still have a timer.
Oh, here.
Should I keep rhythm with my heart? No.
The timer is my heart.
Yeah, my heart just beat it like twice.
Yeah, you just have to focus on counting that.
The question is, how fast is my heart beating?
Alright, we'll just give a set amount of beats.
Okay. Ready? I'll begin my time now. So I strongly negate today's resolution that the U.S. should incur border security in the wake of the Brussels terrorist attack. So, as I said, I'm going to start by talking about my opponent's advantages of their plan. So the first point was pretty succinctly incompetent workers. And I think that's really interesting because I actually wrote down the word incompetent workers to describe the TSA because, as my opponent said, it is unfortunately very true that the TSA sucks and majorly. Let's talk about what happened recently. So their entire point rests off the assumption that if we give the TSA more money, the TSA will be better. So let's talk about what happened a couple months ago. A couple months ago, we gave the TSA several $1 million. And do you want to guess what happened? The rate of errors actually went up. The problem is that the TSA is so fundamentally flawed that they are going to mismanage every single resource we give them. Because as I want to get into more and more in our own case, the TSA can never work, and anything that has anything to do with the TSA is doomed for failure. Because as they get into, she uses a really interesting phrase here, and she uses the word spot to describe what the TSA is trying to do. That's interesting because spot is also where the TSA loves. Why, you may ask? Because it stands for passengers by observation technique. As you may guess, that involves, yeah, that guy really looks like a terrorist over there. I mean, you're teaching, this funding is going to help workers better stereotype individuals. This will increase racism and division in this country. That is a big part of the backbone of the TSA going, yeah, he looks like a terrorist. Bring him in. That is such a huge part of it. That is laughable that my opponents think that any amount of funding is going to change this. Yes.
Is this your own contention, or are
No,
you going to cross-apply this or something?
I'm going to cross-apply this because I think it's really important that we all know how bad the TSA is. All right. So increasing funding for the TSA will just increase these kind of bad decisions. So I'm going to get to their second point now on plane security. It's interesting here that they call this plane security. As they also mentioned in their plan, they want to work on the no-fly list. Because here's the problem. The Brussels attack did not take place on a plane. They're pointing to some attack that was not the Brussels attack, so it doesn't really have any bearing on our actions right now, and saying, yes, increase security on planes. But the Brussels attack did not take place on a plane. And I think that's important. We need to focus our efforts somewhere other than planes. We need to focus on not letting them get into a crowded area where they can attack people in the first place. Again, they focus so much on how this one guy may or may not have used a bomb to bring down a plane. ISIS claims that this was all due to their master plan. And how this may or may not happen again with the ISIS infiltrators that may or may not be in the TSA. Do you understand why this is a tremendously bad idea to sink hundreds of millions of dollars into something that has so many may or may not? They were unable to provide any kind of proof, not even any allegations of how exactly ISIS infiltrators get to the government, how many there are, or even definitively prove that ISIS was responsible for bringing down even one more plane. And again, all of this is irrelevant because in the wake of the Brussels terrorist attacks, that was not on a plane, that was in an airport. So this is completely non-topical in today's round. So with that, I'm going to move on to our own contentions. Our first one is on mainly why the TSA is terrible and always has been and always will be. So let's talk about some reasons why the TSA is bad. So they failed 95% of security checks, so that's a pretty bad thing. And this is while we're increasing funding. Since 2007, we've only been increasing funding since then, and yet errors have only gone up. The more money we pour into them, the more they mismanage it and misuse it on a bigger scale. So again, they use their spotting technique, which is again completely useless. You can't identify a terrorist by seeing the terror deep in his soul. It's ridiculous. And even if you could, I highly doubt TSA is going to be able to get that power at all. So expanding this, and they're focusing a lot on gimmicky tools. They are working off the assumption that the most expensive tech is the best one. So let's talk about the nude scanners that recently, a couple years ago, hit it big. So the idea was that this is a hugely invasive process, but here, let's talk about what the nude scanners could actually figure out. If you're carrying a big block of C4, that's literally it. The TSA is incapable of responding and adapting. Because the thing is that they did never bother to consider the development that maybe terrorists will realize how these machines work and how they can get around it. Researchers were actually able to buy one of these machines off of eBay to figure out that it could only really detect big blocks of C4. If that's not an obvious vulnerability to the TSA, I don't know what is. More and more money means more and more reliance on these high-tech gimmicky things. Think of the Apple Watch, okay? Who actually has found that their life has been revolutionized by the Apple Watch? But I bet if you did have one, you paid a lot of money for it. And that kind of describes the TSA in a single metaphor. They are the Apple Watch. Yes.
So are you saying that we should be going with this flow of the TSA as it is?
I'm saying is that increasing funding to the TSA will only increase racism, divisions, mismanagement, and increase the inefficiency of our currently already inefficient process. So, the problem is that right now, they have a monopoly on airport security, and there is no accountability. If you want to find out how the TSA gets away with all these shenanigans, because experts are saying, hey guys, this is useless, and they're just like, that's cool, but we are our own regulatory board, so I guess we'll just increase funding then, right? Guys, we totally need more funding. That is what they are doing, and they can get away with it because there is no oversight, except for Congress, and Congress can't get anything done. So, of course, there's no oversight in practice. So with that, I'm going to get into our second point. This point. And this point is a little bit more philosophical, not in an Aristotle way, but rather in a, why do terrorists do acts of terror? Why do they terrorize others? And the answer is Terror is used as an intimidation and amplification tactic. Although the numbers of the people who died in this attack may be relatively small, it's not even 24 hours, and we all know about it. It's an amplification of their message and their ideas. And it's an intimidation tactic. Because the problem is that terrorism puts us on the defensive. It makes us play catch-up. It makes us go, okay, how do we figure this out? How do we figure this out fast? And the problem with figuring things out fast, as I hope you realized from looking at my opponent's plan, is that we make mistakes. Sorry, I think I'm in protected time. I have no idea. I don't know what time it is. As Roger Dow, who is the CEO of the United States Travel Association, said, safety precautions should be done in, should not be done in haste. I have a Grace Spear, thanks. Words matter and move markets. It's not just realistic to ban religions, order war crimes, and international travel. So the thing is that we are throwing ourselves on the defensive, and we're trying to put less than 24 hours of plan in place, but we don't know what's coming next. And it's because of that. It's because despite the fact that the Homeland Security Office says that no attacks are being plotted against the U.S., that this action is inefficient, increases racism, as well as will create more terrorism in the future. And that sucks. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, you can like the Los Angeles incident. I don't know.
Okay, can I just write it down?
I'll box that.
In the airport? Okay. And the bomb was supposed to go off in the airport.
Yeah.
Okay, we're good.
They're investigating not like that, but they've confirmed it.
So why did we wait for the results of that investigation?
Okay, so I'm gonna go F case then next case. So time starts now. I strongly affirm today's resolution that the U.S. should significantly increase border security in wake of Brussels terrorist attacks. So our first contention was that of incompetent workers. They claimed that the TSA sucks and that anything associated with the TSA would never work. It would just increase stereotyping, racism, and spot method determining whatever. Okay, this is exactly the reason why we need to be giving this funding. The funding that goes into TSA right now, it's just money being funneled in. This is money that we're specifically putting for background checks. So we have workers who are competent, who are highly skilled, who won't be failing 95% of security checks. We have workers who actually know how to do their jobs and won't be a bunch of stereotyping racists who just determine that, oh, you look like a terrorist. No, we are actually changing this with our plan. So there is the potential to make the TSA better than it is right now. And that is by going with the AF plan. Because the thing is, even if you're going to go with what the neg says and just stick to the status quo, the TSA is still going to be terrible. Let's accept that. But if we go with the AF plan, what we're going to see is that the TSA will become better because workers are going to become better. There won't be stereotyping, racism, or inefficiency. And you might say that there's been funding before. However, this is not the case. This funding wasn't funneled directly into increasing worker quality. And this $500 million that we're setting aside is. So this will be solving the problems that we see currently with the TSA. So our second contention on plane security, they claim that the Brussels attack didn't happen on a plane, therefore this is non-topical, and that we shouldn't be focusing on planes. Okay, planes are the main method of transportation internationally, so they comprise a huge security threat, so we should be focusing on them. Moreover, the resolution says the U.S. should significantly increase border security in the wake of Brussels terrorist attacks. Plane travel is part, and making sure that this is safe is part of our border security to make sure that that terrorists and weapons can't be transported across borders. So this is clearly topical. So I'm just going to go into this again. So in Los Angeles, according to the Telegraph a couple of months ago, the FBI confirmed of a known plot to detonate a bomb in the airport by ISIS. And so if they wanted an example of a plot in the airport, Here it is. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to make this safer, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to increase the TSB terrorist watch list. So we're going to be making our flights and our airports safer. We're going to be increasing the quality of life once again. They just state that this is non-topical, although it clearly is. It goes under the resolution of border security. So now on to their case. The first contention, TSA is terrible. Now, we know, we agree that this is terrible in the status quo. We are going to be changing this in the plan. Adding in more money isn't going to make the problem worse, because we are funneling it, we are channeling it to one particular area, increasing the quality of workers. So yes, in the status quo there is inefficiency, and the neg is choosing to stick with that inefficiency, whereas we are going to be changing it. We are going to decrease stereotyping and racial profiling. We are going to increase the ability of workers to spot threats to the American people and safeguard our security. So we are going to be saving lives that could be lost, and we're going to be increasing the quality of life by making everyone feel safer once we have competent workers. So no, the TSA is not terrible. I mean, it is terrible, but it's not always going to be terrible. We just need to have focused funding in the right area, which is what the AF plan is doing. So their second contention was that this would be increasing terrorism as we're on the defensive, and that we would be making mistakes. However, let's think about the alternative to not doing anything about this. The alternative is continuing to be lax with our security as we have been. The alternative is guaranteeing that a terrorist will be able to come in, slip through, and blow something up here. This lax security and thinking was what led to 9/11 happening. And the 9/11 terrorist attacks. So, while it is true that acting defensive against terrorism can cause ramifications of increased terror, what we see if we don't do anything about it is people are definitely going to be dying, and we're just going to be standing back and doing nothing about it. Whereas if we were to increase our security, we can at least deter these terrorists from trying to enter our country. And yeah, so pretty much what we're seeing is that major cities with airports have already been threatened by ISIS. We need to be doing something right now rather than just being there and doing nothing as the neg would. So in summary, what we see is that the TSA is inefficient, racially profiling and stereotyping right now. Our security is terrible, and and NEG is going to be sticking with this. They're going to be sticking with a weak security system that will surely result in a loss of life in the future. Whereas the AF plan, we are going to be changing the TSA. We are not sticking to the ineffective bureaucracy we see right now. We are going to be increasing security, and we are going to be saving lives by increasing the quality of workers and expanding the TSB watch list. So I strongly affirm.
Because she didn't believe that she only focused on one part of my reputation. It was like a full, even if you break off one die, there's still two more.
Or three more if it started with 4.
Oh yeah, you're right. Books do have 4 times. You know what? I got you. So sports that only have like 3 sports.
Yeah.
I don't use forks on a daily basis.
Same.
Well, at least in the kind of course they'd have like a wood engraved spork, which you would use
No, I have
for
a
like
separate fork
squash.
and spoon.
Forgive me.
I like sports.
I feel like I am the human
All right.
sport. Especially the
All right.
Okay.
Let's move on.
Okay, I'm going to be going over af, then neg times. Time starts now. I strongly affirm the resolution that the U.S. should significantly increase border. I strongly negate. I strongly negate the resolution that the U.S. should significantly increase the border security in the wake of the Brussels terrorist attacks. So first they said, their first contention was that TSA is terrible. They themselves said that TSA is terrible, and according to CBS, the TSA was given $5.4 million a few months ago, and that led to 95% of tests failing, and 67 out of 70 tests that were taken, the TSA people let unallowed objects to go through security, and sorry, I don't have time. I'll get back to you if I do. They had, and also, basically, just giving them more money will not help, because as we've already seen, the U.S. government gave them $5.4 million, and that increased their inefficiency. And as my partner already brought up, by giving them more money, we're increasing their inefficiency and increasing the spot, using spot as a security, and that will also increase racism, inefficiency, misjudgment, and this will be a loss of money and resources. I'm sorry, I don't have time. I will get to you. Going on to their second contention about plane security. In the wake of the situation, the Brussels attack had only occurred at the airport, so it's kind of irrelevant at the time. And they say that I don't know where it went. Oh yeah. So even though okay, yeah. So my partner had brought up that that the AF has no evidence that it was ISIS sympathizers that had placed the bomb on the plane. Oh, okay. They also had no proof that there was an ISIS sympathizer in the TSA. So by completely dropping that point, they conceded to my partner's refutation that that there is no proof that it was an ISIS sympathizer, and they're agreeing to the fact that there is a possibility that it wasn't an ISIS sympathizer at all. And basically. That's it. Now I'm going to go on to AF case. Our first contention was that TSA bad. Again, I bring up the fact that the U.S. had given them $5.4 million, and that led to 95% of security checks failing. And you can't just judge. TSA uses spot security, which, as my partner has already brought up, it's just looking at a person and thinking, oh, will this person be a terrorist? That increases misjudgment. That increases misjudgment, racism, inefficiency, and the loss of money, because with the point that I just brought up, that giving them $5.4 million only led to inefficiency. The U.S. is only losing money and its resources by giving TSA so much. Our second contention was that was a reaction. So the point of terrorism is to increase terror. And so if we make haste and just put security everywhere, people will start. I'm sorry, I don't have time. I'll get to you later. By making haste and rapidly increasing all the security, we will only be putting people in more fear, which will give the terrorists the exact reaction that they wanted, which will increase terrorism. Because they'll be like, oh yeah, yay, our tactics are working, our plan is working, yay, the entire world is even more scared now, and yeah, terrorism will increase. Yeah, and if we make haste, then we are only making waste because
Oh my god.
that was actually my idea, but whatever.
No.
That was really good.
Thank you. Yeah. So if we make haste, then if we go with what Af said by just giving them even more, by giving TSA even more money, we're making haste, and that will increase their inefficiency, which is already so high at 95%. So do we want to make it 100% by giving them $5 million more, or do we want to keep it at the inefficiency it is at right now? Yeah. So having 100% inefficiency is worse than having 95% inefficiency. Let's see how much more time I have left. Okay. Yeah, going back to asking because I'm so disorganized. The app is acting like 15 second grace period. I'm sorry. I don't know, 50 seconds. Sorry. They're acting like that the TSA are just random people who are just there being security guards. There are background checks, even though they are inefficient. I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm sorry. That's it.
I think
Yeah.
the important part is that you go to
Yeah, that's it. I'm sorry. I'm just wasting everyone's time.
No, you're not.
That was fab.
Dude, that's good. You're good.
Lily, our resident expert on fab, just approved it, so.
I'm a fab queen.
Oh gosh, we created a monster. I can borrow some of these.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
All right. So, I still strongly negate today's resolution, and in this motive speech, I'm going to talk about some great reasons why the negation has won today's debate. I'm not going to let you know what they are now because I'm thinking of as I go along. So, the first reason why the negation has clearly won today's debate is because the AFS plan is associated with that foul beast, the TSA. So, let's talk about the TSA. The idea that the affirmations plan is working on is we have this bad thing. In the past, we gave it a lot of money, and it got worse. So you know what we should do right now? Let's give them more money. And so broken down as simply as that, you can see that it's a really bad idea to give it more money because more money allows them to do what they do on a bigger scale. And like I said, they're chasing gimmicks instead of effective security. The thing is that this funding is going to be wasted. And they claim, oh, but if we give them this money, then it'll be all kosher. But it's not going to be kosher. In fact, I recommend all Jewish people stay away from this organization because the problem is that the TSA has all of these problems. Like I mentioned, the fact that they are their own regulatory board, the fact that there's a culture of gimmicks, the fact that one of the backbones of the organization, they have thousands of people whose only job is to go, that guy looks like a terrorist. Throwing more money at background checks is not going to solve anything. They're acting like it's a terrorist-riddled hype-ability. But I'm going to argue that the TSA is a more innocuous kind of evil. It's bureaucracy. And feeding the monster that is bureaucracy. Have you heard the quote, the bureaucracy is expanding to meet the expanding needs of the bureaucracy? Now you have. And I think that really well sums up what is trying to do. Okay, that could have been smoother, but let's go. The problem is that their plan cannot fix this culture of servitude. Their plan does not fix every single aspect of the TSA, because as I'm going to get into later, this hasty plan is just going to make the problem way, way worse. So let's talk about another theme that they've consistently brought throughout their case. Well, at least we're doing something, and they brought up this idea that any change from the status quo is better than the status quo. But as I'm going to argue, and as my partner and I have both previously argued, what they're doing is not closing any kind of gap, but widening it. The change they want is change for the worse. Because as we've hopefully proven to you, what happens when you give the TSA more money? Ever since 2007, we've poured even more money. Ever since 9/11, we've poured even more money. And the TSA has not gotten any better because of the culture, a corporate culture of not really doing a good job. And throwing more money isn't going to make this any better. It's just going to more deeply entrench the problems that already exist. They have not come up with any kind of plan for what they're going to replace the spot system with. They have not come up with any regulatory board that will actually fix the problems of the TSA. They have not come up with any alternatives to chasing the next gimmick. Their idea is, well, there might be some ISIS sympathizers in there, so we're going to use $500 million and see if there are any. Using an inefficient instrument that's like using a hammer to do surgery. You don't want a hammer to do surgery. As I hope is evidently clear from today's pick, and the TSA is the hammer. Alright, so the thing is that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result. And I think that also is the definition of my opponent's plan. Because the problem is that they're doing the same thing, giving more and more money and then expecting things to get changed for the better. And that's not going to happen, because we're going to argue that better the devil you know than the one you don't. And in this instance, the TSA is the devil you know. And deals with the devil never end well. Don't fund the TSA. Okay, this is going way off track. So I'm going to return to the third and perhaps most important point in today's debate. And that is that it's been less than 24 hours since the Brussels attack. And do you think that less than 24 hours after a major problem is the best time? The problem is that security policy is not a league match that involves fast twitch muscles and a really nice mechanical keyboard in order to gank your opponents. What it does involve is thoughtful policy that is aimed at actually fixing problems. It is easy. Anybody really can. Toss money at a problem. But what takes greater skill is to toss money at the right spot. And that's not what my opponents are doing. The problem is that, like my partner and I have said again and again, it's been less than 24 hours. What we don't want is to do this kind of hasty policy, because the point of terror is to catch you off guard, to put you on the defensive, it's to leave you scrambling for some way to right the wrongs that have been committed. But what we're going to argue instead, and as we have done, and as we will continue to do, is that what we need instead, is that we need thoughtful. Let's use an analogy. Lily, you're going to turn 18 this year. When you turn 18, the second you turn 18, are you going to get a tattoo that says that you heart Meredith? No. Tattoos are very permanent. That would be a very bad idea. In 50 years, will you still heart Meredith? We don't know. And it's for this exact reason that we argue that the United States should not get a tattoo within the first 24 hours of it turning 18. Thank you.
Can I say Dr. Sweet too?
It just happened.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how happened. That's true.
And the best part is that Lily can't share this online with a bunch of people without revealing her own incriminating secrets at the beginning. Where she was completely dumping Zarina and being like, well, no one's going to watch this video anyway. I remember.
You know I can just like cut.
Oh, but can you cut this?
Video editing.
Alright. Alright, I'm just going to point the clash, make it into voter issues, and why the action win today's round. Okay. Time starts now. As the final speaker of the former team, I strongly affirm today's resolution. The U.S. should significantly increase border security in the wake of the Brussels terrorist attacks. So our first finding class was that of worker training. So the NEC has in their past speech come up and claimed that we have no proof that there are any ISIS sympathizers working in the TSA. That is not really the entirety of our plan. The plan is to improve the TSA, improve worker training so they can spot terrorists, as well as better the ranks of the TSA employees themselves, making everyone safer. Not try to spot who's the ISIS sympathizer in the TSA. So thank you for completely misunderstanding our plan.
Welcome.
Okay, going on. So they go on to claim how more money has been thrown at this problem, how more money would in fact make the problem worse. Okay, correlation is not causation. Just because there has been more money and has gotten worse does not mean that it's actually the cause of what's making it
Point
worse.
of order. I brought up the point that throwing money at the TSA makes it worse in my first speech. So if you wanted to respond to this, you should have done so at your first cross opportunity, which was during your speech. This is a completely new argument to completely new response to an old argument.
Okay, I try to be shady.
Yeah, point well taken.
Yeah, point taken.
We should probably
I'll just
stop
go.
talking about this.
Alright, time starts now. So the neg claims we're going to go to 100%, but the truth is, here at the app, we're actually trying to cause active change to the problem, and we will specify again and again, as we have specified in the past, we're directly channeling the money we're spending to worker training and to better enforcing the rates, not just giving it to the board and letting them decide. We are channeling the money, which they have clearly missed throughout the whole debate. Okay. And so going on, what we see here is we are actually actively trying to solve this problem and do something about the rising amount of terrorist attacks, whereas the neg would have you stick with the 95% ineffectiveness rate of the TSA, which is definitely not safe for anyone. So going on to their point about hasty thinking and how this attack was less than 24 hours ago. But this isn't just the first attack we've had. We've had the Paris attacks. We've had attacks, a bomb set off on an Egyptian airliner. We've had, and ISIS has already claimed, released statements saying that they are specifically targeting major U.S. airports and cities. So what we need to do is actually take some action, which we haven't done in the past. The Brussels attacks is only one more example of why we need to have change and why we need to increase our security. Because we haven't done anything in the past, and soon this Brussels attack could easily be an attack in LA or San Francisco. And LA was actually really close. As we reported, the FBI was actually investigating a known terror plot. So this isn't just hasty action. We actually we have to do something now, because if we don't, there are surely going to be people dying. So what the judge, we ask you to do is examine the net benefit of more death, which is what the neg assures, or the possibility of saving lives. And this is what our net benefit is, saving lives and increasing the quality of life by increasing our safety. So going on, they claim, and kind of going off that point, they claim how the neg claim, what is that? I don't know what that was. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Low power.
Okay,
Continue.
so what the neg claims how, okay, so going on to our third contention. So the neg claims, oh shoot, I'm trying to think about this. Okay, how we should only be, we're not going to be affecting everything, solving all the problems. No, we're not, but at least we're going to be taking significant action to stop the deaths that are going to happen in the neg world. And we can stop it with the AF plan, which is targeting the money to worker training. And what we see here is we will see a decrease of the problems the neg is mentioned with the TSA. They argue it's better to stick with the devil you know. Well, the devil we know that is going to happen is people dying. And if we want to accept that, then that means we shouldn't try it all in any scenario. But we at the app, we're going to insist that we try to save lives and do what we can to actually change the squo and make our environment more safer, because the fact is that Brussels is only one more example of the terror attacks that are eventually going to happen in the USA. So it's better to do something now than do it later. And they argue that, we're going to be, people are going to get more scared and giving into hasty action. Actually, that's part of the reason why we keep the TSA in the first place, even with a 95% effectiveness rate, because if we were to take them away, everyone would be scared. So just to end it all, we need to have the net benefit of saving lives, which is going to happen in the app world, and for all these reasons, I affirm. Okay.
Lily? Yes, Grace.
I wrote a point during prep time about how there's not going to be an ISIS attack on the U.S. and then I wrote on it